On long trips out to sea, catching sailfish with hooks and long lines is a process that requires careful preparation, extensive experience and the fisherman's endurance in the face of the waves and winds of the sea. Before the ship leaves the dock, the entire long fishing line system, each section of main line, branch line, hook, signal buoy and other supporting tools are checked. The main fishing line is usually rolled into large pieces, neatly arranged on the deck so that it does not get tangled when dropped. The hook is tied securely to the branch line. Each knot is checked to ensure it does not slip when a large fish bites the hook. Fishermen also prepare bait, which can be small fish, squid or other fresh baits, carefully threaded onto the hook, so that it is both secure and creates a natural look when dropped into the water, making it easy to attract sailfish. When the ship reaches the fishing ground, the captain observes the wind direction, current, water temperature and many years of experience to choose the fishing area. The long fishing line is gradually lowered into the sea. Each section is separated by a branch line with a hook and bait prepared. On the water surface, buoys are dropped at a certain distance, both to mark the position of the fishing line and to help people on the boat observe which section shows signs of a fish being hooked. After the line system is dropped, the boat moves slowly or anchors. The fishermen take turns observing the buoy, listening to the sound of the winch and other signals. When the sailfish bites the hook, the buoy can be pulled to the side, sink deeper or move unusually, at which point everyone immediately informs each other to prepare to pull the line. Pulling up the long fishing line is a stressful process, because sailfish are large, strong fish, swim very fast and often thrash hard to escape. Fishermen must combine human strength and the winch, pulling and loosening, adjusting the force so that the line does not break. The hook does not come out of the fish's mouth. When the fish gradually surface, experienced people quickly use a hook or rope to control it. Avoiding it from waving strongly, breaking the rod, breaking the rope or endangering people standing near the ship's side. Sometimes it takes a long time for the whole group to bring a marlin weighing tens or even hundreds of kilograms onto the deck. Once the fish is brought up, the fishermen secure it with rope, ensuring that the fish can no longer struggle. Next comes the processing and cutting of the meat. First, they wash it to remove the seawater and dirt on the fish's body. Then use a large, sharp knife to start the work. Cutting the marlin requires meticulousness and a clear understanding of the body structure of this fish. Usually, people will process the head and fins first, then cut along the spine to separate large pieces of meat. The knife is moved decisively, following the skeleton to get the most meat without crushing the fibers. Each fillet is separated, the unused parts are removed, and then neatly placed in clean containers. The skin, bones and other parts are also classified. Some are used as cooked food. Some are used as other ingredients or discarded according to regulations. On deck, the working atmosphere is always urgent. People cut, some wash, some weigh, record the quantity. All coordinate smoothly to make the work happen quickly before the fish loses quality. Sailfish meat has large, firm fibers, so when cutting, pay attention to the direction of the fibers so that the meat is both beautiful and easy to process later. The qualified pieces of meat are wrapped or put in a box with ice, kept at the right temperature to ensure freshness until the ship arrives. during the whole process from preparing the fishing line, hook, dropping the line, bringing the fish onto the ship to cutting the meat. The experience of the fisherman plays a key role. Just tying a wrong knot, misestimating the pulling force, or being careless when cutting can cause loss of fish, spoilage of meat, or endangering oneself. Therefore, those who participate in catching sailfish with hooks and long lines are often people who are familiar with the sea. Understand the temperament of this fish. Know how to read the signs of waves, wind, and buoys floating on the water surface. Each successful sea trip with a full bay of sailfish is the result of a series of continuous stages. From fishing techniques to cutting and preserving skills, all combined into a chain of experiences passed down through many generations of fishermen attached to the profession, not only stopping at technique and strength. The process of catching sailfish with hooks and long lines is also associated with the spiritual and emotional life of those who stick to the sea. On the boat, when the fishing lines have been released, the work temporarily calms down. Fishermen gather in groups of 3 or 5 on the side of the boat, observing the buoys and chatting, telling each other about previous trips, times of losing everything due to sudden storms or tangled lines, times of luck in pulling up giant sailfish, so heavy that dozens of people have to pull together to get it up. In their memory, each time they pull up the line is a time of suspense. Because no one knows exactly what is waiting down there. It could be empty hooks, or it could be a sailfish struggling to escape, making the whole line vibrate violently. When encountering a school of fish that eats strongly, sometimes many hooks are caught at the same time. The ship becomes bustling, the sound of each other pulling the line, the sound of the winch, the sound of water splashing, and the sound of fish struggling combine to create a bustling working atmosphere in the middle of the sea. After the fish is cut, the blood and organs are carefully processed to avoid pollution, while ensuring the deck area is clean to continue working. The knives used to cut the fish are constantly sharpened, because if the knife is dull, the cut will easily be deviated, tearing the meat fibers, affecting the commercial value. Experienced fish cutters often only need to look at which cut to make, how to move the knife, separate which part of the meat for export. Which part is suitable for domestic consumption? They understand that each cut is not only a technical operation, but also money, the effort of the whole trip. Besides, preserving the swordfish after cutting is also extremely important. The ice boxes on the ship are prepared in advance. The ice is flattened into layers. There is always ice between the layers of fish meat to keep it cool evenly. In conditions at sea, the temperature can change, so fishermen have to regularly check, add ice, and rearrange the boxes to avoid the situation where some places are too cold. Some places are not cold enough. Sometimes, if the sea trip is long, they also have to carefully calculate the amount of ice they bring, so that it is enough to preserve the entire output but does not take up too much space on the ship. In the midst of those seemingly dry stages, there are still moments when fishermen silently look out at the vast ocean, where the sunset dyes the whole sky red, or the dawn appears after a sleepless night of watching the buoy. They understand that, to have blocks of delicious, pink-white marlin meat on the dining table, is a long, arduous journey, with sleepless nights, waves crashing against the ship's side and even times facing danger when big fish struggle close to the water's edge. The profession of catching sailfish with hooks and long lines is not only a livelihood, but also a connection with the sea, with the ship, with the long fishing lines that seem lifeless but are the bridge between people and the resources from the ocean floor. The experience is in choosing bait, timing the fishing, estimating the depth, handling the fish when hooked or cutting the meat to make it look nice and maintain the quality are all drawn from many years of rolling around. The next generation learns from the previous generation. Each generation follows the other, preserving and developing the sea profession. Every callus on the hand holding the line, holding the knife, every drop of sweat falling on the deck, every small cut from the sharp blade or from colliding with the sharp fins of the fish is also part of the long story of the journey of catching and cutting sailfish on the open sea. Where human strength, human intelligence and love for the sea come together, creating value for each piece of fish meat returning to shore behind each sailfish fishing trip with hooks and long lines is also the story of the livelihood of the entire family of the seafarer. Because each sailfish pulled onto the deck is not only a trophy, but also money for the children's education, the cost of repairing the ship's engine, paying off debts for fuel, ice, and crew salaries. Therefore, fishermen always try to maximize the value of each fish, from catching to cutting the meat, not allowing themselves to do it carelessly or carelessly. When the sailfish has been cut into fillets, the people on board often use towels or clean seawater to wipe away the remaining blood on the surface, creating a bright and beautiful look for the meat. Large veins, fat, and bruised meat will be separated. The most beautiful part will be reserved for high-quality orders. In some places, fishermen are even used to classifying right on the boat, which pieces can be cut into thick slices for sashimi, which pieces are suitable for steak, which pieces are for drying or making patties. Everything is noted or marked with a separate bag or box, so that when they reach the shore, traders only need to look at it to know the quality and value. On a ship drifting at sea, the working area for cutting fish is usually fixed. Knives, cutting boards, barrels, and hand-washing buckets are all within reach, helping the operator not to waste time moving around much. After each time they finish cutting a large fish, they take the opportunity to pour water, collect the scraps, and clean the working area, both to avoid slipping and to ensure hygiene for the next fish. Those who have been in the profession for a long time often have a steady posture on the deck of the ship even when the waves are shaking strongly. Their hands holding the knife still maintain precision. Do not shake, do not lose direction, because they are used to the feeling of the ship tilting with each wave. In addition, the use of hooks and long lines must also take into account the safety factor for people. The main line is very long, with many sections. If not careful, it can get tangled in the legs, arms, or stuck in the winch, causing an accident. Therefore, when reeling in the line, the whole team must coordinate rhythmically. One person rolls the line, one person unhooks each hook, one person watches to avoid the line getting tangled. Every time a hooked marlin is still strong, they must also stay calm, Not get too close to the side of the ship, because with just one strong wave, the fish's body, fins or hook can hit people. There are stories told about regretful times of losing fish when the line breaks close to the bow of the ship, or the hook does not go deep enough. The fish struggles for a while then escapes, leaving sadness on the faces of the whole team. On the contrary, the times when they catch a rare big marlin, everyone remembers clearly, from the moment the buoy sinks, the line is taut, to when the fish gradually reveals its long body. Its dorsal fin stands high, its pointed nose breaks the water's surface, the silver-blue light of its skin flashes in the sun. All are deeply imprinted in the memory as a moment of victory. When the ship turned back to shore, in the hold were neatly cut boxes of sailfish, lying still in the cold ice layer. The fishermen on board were both tired and relieved, but still busy with bookkeeping, calculating output, and estimating selling prices. They discussed which port to dock at, where traders could buy at a better price, where there were refrigerated trucks waiting for goods. When the ship reached the wharf, each box of fish was lifted, weighed, and loaded onto the truck. All the hard work of fishing, pulling lines, and cutting gradually turned into specific numbers. However, not every trip was smooth. There were stormy sea trips with few fish. Damaged lines, broken hooks, and increased costs. But the fishermen still stuck to their profession, still preparing fishing lines, sharpening knives, and checking each hook for the next trip out to sea. For them, the murmur of the waves, the salty smell of the sea breeze, the feeling of the fishing line tightening in their hands when the sailfish bites the bait, and the heavy feeling when they pull a big fish onto the deck together are an indispensable part of life. The profession of catching sailfish with hooks and long lines, along with the process of cutting the meat right on the boat, has become an industry of its own, requiring a combination of strength, skill, experience and perseverance, enduring all the fluctuations of the sea in the context of the marine industry being increasingly affected by erratic weather and declining resources. Those who catch sailfish with hooks and long lines are gradually forming an awareness of reasonable exploitation to stay at sea for a long time. They learn how to choose the season. Choose the right size of fish. Avoid catching fish that are too small, and comply with regulations on fishing grounds, prohibited times, and prohibited areas. When cutting sailfish meat, experienced people also recognize the difference between young fish and mature fish through the color and firmness of the meat fibers, thereby knowing whether they are exploiting in the right direction or not. Also on the deck of the ship, after hours of straining to pull the line, struggling with large sailfish, are the times when fishermen take the opportunity to cook from the scraps of meat, the heads, and the fresh bellies of the fish. A pot of hot fish soup, a simple pan of fried fish in the middle of the sea is enough to warm the whole group's stomachs, giving them more energy for the next work shifts. While eating, they discussed how to sharpen knives so that the blade was always sharp, how to tie hooks that would not tear the fish's mouth when pulled up, how to arrange long fishing lines to limit the number of fish other than the target getting caught. reduce bait loss and avoid harming unwanted species. Even the meat cutting process was gradually improved, instead of just chopping into rough pieces. Many ships were used to filleting, skinning, and deboning properly, to sell to more demanding markets, at higher prices. Each time like that, the operations on the deck became more professional. Knives were lighter and more precise. Containers were cleaned more thoroughly. Ice was added more evenly. Each layer of fish meat was arranged neatly like in a miniature processing factory in the middle of the sea. When night fell, against the pitch-black sky, there were only streaks of light from the ship's lights. Long fishing lines dropped deep into the cold water. Fishermen took turns keeping watch, listening to the sound of waves, the sound of the ship, and paying attention to every movement of the buoy. They understood that, perhaps in the darkness, a marlin was approaching the bait, circling, then suddenly lunging to bite, pulling the line, opening a whole chain of work behind. Pulling the line, controlling the fish, cutting the meat, preserving, every shout when discovering a sinking buoy, every hurried step running to the side of the ship was associated with the hope of making up for the rough sea days. The times of having to return to shore empty-handed. It was that continuous chain of work that created the typical rhythm of life of marlin fishing with hooks and long lines, where cutting the meat was not only the end of a fish, but also the nexus of the entire labor journey, from the preparation on shore, going out to sea, dropping the line, collecting the line, until the boxes of fresh marlin meat were brought to the port. Every piece of meat cut out contains the effort, sweat and resilience of the seafarers, who are always ready to face strong winds and big waves to bring the benefits from the ocean floor back to their families and for the meals of many people on the mainland. And no matter how hard it is, they continue to sharpen their knives, tie each hook, and arrange each long coil of fishing line to prepare for the next journey at sea once the sailfish has been cut. Sorted and packed in iceboxes in the hold, its journey has not stopped but continues to a new stage. Connected to the fish market, the processing plant and the consumer's meal. From the perspective of the fish cutter on the ship, each piece of meat that is filtered out carries strict quality requirements. The meat must be firm, smooth surface, not too many tendons, not crushed, not mixed with small bones, and minimize messy cuts. To do that, when cutting along the fish's body, they must move the knife tip close to the skeleton, then skillfully pass through the large joints in the head and back, avoiding breaking them. The horizontal cuts on the body are often used to divide large fillets into bite-sized pieces, convenient enough for later packaging and transportation. Every time the meat is turned over, the cutter looks carefully to see if there are any small bones, long tendons, or bruised pieces of meat left from the fish hitting hard when pulling it up. If there are, they use a sharp knife to separate them, not to mix them with the beautiful meat. Even the skin of the sailfish is not always thrown away. Some places use the skin to grill or prepare separate dishes. So when peeling the skin, they also try to keep each piece intact, not cutting it into too many pieces. The belly parts of the fish, which have more fat, are separated because the meat fibers are soft. suitable for braising, grilling or making dishes that require fat. The meat near the backbone is firm, has large fibers, and is considered the best part to make steak or thick slices. Sometimes, right on the boat, the worker has already imagined what the piece of meat will become later. From there, adjusting the cutting method so that when it reaches the hands of the processor, it only needs to be processed a few more small steps to be able to put it on the pan or on the stove. When the ship docks, the boxes of sailfish that have been cut and sliced properly are often sought after by traders. Because they know that the processing on board has saved him a lot of work. Each box is opened, the pieces of meat are neatly arranged, interspersed with rocks. The surface is dry, no blood. The meat color is bright, pink or red depending on the species, is a sign that the people on board work with technique and dedication. The selling price is therefore different, and that goes back to the motivation of the fishermen. The more carefully they cut, the better the hygiene is maintained, the more obvious the economic results. However, to reach that level of proficiency, many people have had to go through the initial years of being clumsy, cutting bones, crushing meat, causing traders to criticize, forcing prices down. Usually, on the ship, young people new to the profession will stand by to help the experienced. They wipe the knives, hold the fish, carry the boxes, clean, and observe each stroke of the master's knife. Gradually, when they get used to the position of each part of the fish's body, and the feeling of the blade touching the bones, the fat layer, and the skin layer, they are assigned to cut small parts, then larger ones. Just like that, the skill is passed on, without books, just standing on the deck full of fishy smell, salty wind and the sound of waves. Besides, fishing with hooks and long lines also directly affects the quality of the meat when cutting. Caught sailfish are often less bruised than those pulled in nets, because they get caught on one or a few hooks, struggling but not pressed against other large fish. If handled quickly, brought onto the ship and cut early, the meat retains a high level of freshness, beautiful color, and is not mushy. Therefore, on ships that are familiar with the job, after discovering a fish caught, they try to shorten the time from when the line is pulled in until the fish is taken down, bled, cleaned and cut. Some captains even have clear rules. Fish must be processed after being on deck, not left to lie in the sun or dirty on the deck for too long. All these rules, although not written down, are followed by everyone like a habit, because they understand that just a little negligence can reduce the value of the whole fish. And during the nights lying on the boat waiting for the next day to sell all the goods, fishermen often think about the next trip, recalculating the number of broken hooks that need to be replaced, the number of frayed lines that need to be spliced, the number of knives that need to be sharpened. They remember each sailfish that fought with them on the water, each time the knife glided over the fish's body, each piece of meat that was put into the box, as if to extend the bond between human life and the sea. Although the future is full of uncertainties, fish prices are sometimes high, sometimes low, and the weather is unpredictable. The image of a ship with long fishing lines, bright hooks, always sharpened knives, and boxes of sailfish meat packed tightly in the hold is still a familiar symbol of a lifetime of making a living on the waves, where each cut on the fish's body is the mark of hard-working but persistent hands after many trips. Sailfish fishermen using hooks and long lines almost know the rhythm of the work by heart, to the point that just by looking at the sky, the ripples or the feeling of the boat bobbing up and down, they can guess whether the fish will eat a lot that day or not. The long fishing lines, which seem to be just inanimate tools, become the lifeline of the whole trip. So when they have free time after reeling in the lines, they often sit and check each section, cutting off and re-splicing any frayed parts, replacing any bent hooks, and redoing any knots that show signs of loosening. Just like sharpening knives for cutting meat, people never wait until they need to use them to worry about repairing them, because just a dull blade or a weak hook is enough to lose the chance with big sailfish. At the moment, the fish is pulled close to the side of the boat. Sometimes the whole group has to coordinate together. One person holds the rope to control the head. One person uses a hook to hold the body. Another person prepares a rope to tie it in place. Everything happens very quickly but is not allowed to be chaotic. Immediately after that, to prepare for the cutting stage, they often drain the fish's blood by quickly cutting into the appropriate location, letting the blood escape, helping the meat to be white and not dark. Seawater is continuously poured to clean it. Then the fish is brought to the cutting area. At this time, the sharp knife becomes the main tool. Each cut along the spine, down the two sides of the body, separating the meat from the bones like a movement that has been repeated thousands of times but still requires absolute concentration. Skilled workers often take advantage of every valuable part of the fish's body, large pieces of meat for filleting, small